and welcome to another edition of the Jacksonville Buzz. I am your host, Adrienne Houghton. Joining me in the studio today is Mr. Curtis Tucker, and he is the General and Artistic Director of First Coast Opera. Welcome, Curtis.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you again. I'm always interested in finding out what's happening with First Coast Opera. And tell me, you've got the Pirates of Penzance.
The Pirates of Penzance coming up March 15 and 17. It's a great, great piece. It's one of my favorites. You know, some operas are serious and brooding and tragic. This one is just a lot of fun. The music's great. The characters are great. It's very entertaining. And so we're having a great time putting it together.
Do you do Gilbert and Sullivan very often? Because I don't know that I have seen a lot of
The company has done Gilbert and Sullivan from time to time. We did HMS Pinafore right before the pandemic, so that was the last one we did. And even we're in their 24th year, First Coast Opera, and in the early days they did some Gilbert and Sullivan. But it's certainly not the only thing we do. We're an opera company, so we do kind of the full range of opera. Now, I personally have done a lot of Gilbert and Sullivan. This is in fact my 8th production of the Pirates of Penzance.
Now, not only are you producing it, but there's a reason why you're now sporting a furry face.
Yeah, I don't usually look like this. I don't really like looking like this, to be honest. But we were asked to, let the hair grow, and then, it'll probably get trimmed back, or,
and that's because you actually have a role.
Because I do. In this production, I'm playing Major General Stanley, which is the role that sings the famous Patter song, and it's a great role. I've done it once before. It's the second time I'm doing it. It's a favorite role and a favorite production. So what could be better?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's unique about First Coast Opera?
Well, First Coast Opera is the only professional producing opera company in Northeast Florida. So while we're founded and are based in St. Augustine, most of our programs take place in St. Augustine. We really serve the entire region, and we do occasionally get into Jacksonville with some of our programming. And that's the main thing. There's some university programs around, but to see professional opera, we bring professionals in from out of town. We use a lot of local people too in the chorus and in some of the roles, but it's just it's a high level production, and we're the only opera company, and so that's exciting.
It is exciting. It is, yes. So I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, but do people still dress up to go to the opera? That's a variation of the most common question I've heard. I've been doing this 30 years, right? And the most common question I've heard in all of that time is, what do I wear? What do I wear to the opera? Because, people don't know. They don't want to be underdressed or overdressed, perhaps. And my stock answer is, wear whatever you want. We just want you to come. Well, of course.
But I will say a lot of people do still dress for the opera, not necessarily in tuxes. If you go to Europe and some places, maybe you still find that. But a lot of people will dress in their Sunday best or whatever. But frankly, if you want to come in jeans and a T-shirt, we're not going to turn you away. We just want you to be there to enjoy.
And where do you perform this?
Excuse me. The Pirates of Penzance will perform at Lewis Auditorium, downtown St. Augustine. That's the theater that Flagler College has, and it's a wonderful, beautiful venue for this, and that's where we do our big, full major productions. And I might point out that this year is a special year for us and this production, because it's the first time. We typically do one big production a year, full stage, orchestra, sets, costumes, the whole bit, and then we do some smaller programs, maybe smaller operas, some concerts. But this year we're actually doing 2 big full operas. We did La Boheme in December. And now this Pirates of Penzance. So this production kind of represents a new benchmark for us, which is very exciting.
Yeah. And what's coming up in the future for First Coast Opera?
Well, before this season ends, our season runs fall to spring, so we've got a program in May. We're doing a chamber opera, a small production called The Stranger's Tale, and it's an opera about a person experiencing homelessness, and it's set in a park around a bench, and people come in and interact, and it asks some interesting questions that the audience has to think about, I think. And it's just a short 45-minute piece that I happen to have composed, and so that's very exciting as well.
How wonderful. Now that's part of the Romanza Festival?
It will be performed as part of the Romanza Festival in early May.
Marvellous.
Yes.
Curtis, thank you very much for coming in. It's always a pleasure to find out what's going on down in St. Augustine.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to know any more information about First Coast Opera, you can find tickets on firstcoastopera.com or on dailynewsnetwork.com.